Welcome to a Wiser Retirement podcast. Before we get started with the episode, I wanted to let you know about a new free ebook available on our website. This ebook goes over the top reasons most financial plans fail and covers what a quality financial plan should consist of. The link to download Top Reasons Most Financial Plans Fail is listed in the episode notes. Now on to today's episode.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom today is my co-host, Brad Lyons. Hey, Brad.
Hi, Casey.
So today we're going to talk about financial success is intentional, is our theme today. And, this is so true. It's not just financial success. It's success in anything, really. So I found us some stories. We're going to have story time, Brad.
Okay.
When you think about different people, more household names, we think, oh, they just always been a success. Bill Gates, for example. I think, man, the guy created Microsoft. He changed the world, like literally. Microsoft's done some amazing things. Will continue to do amazing things in the future. But he couldn't make any money at first. They had a company, him and Paul Allen had a company called Traf-O-Data, which was a device that could read traffic tapes and then process the data. And nobody bought it. Nobody had any interest in it.
I wish they did. We could use that today.
Right. Well, we have cooler things now, but
yes.
But yeah, basically it was a complete failure. But they learned from those failures and obviously created Microsoft down the road. Albert Einstein. I didn't know this. He didn't speak until he was 4 years old. He thought many people thought he was just a dud. Throughout elementary school, many of his teachers thought he was lazy, wouldn't make anything of himself. He always received good grades, but he always was asking abstract questions that people didn't understand. But eventually, he developed the theory of relativity. Right.
Pretty smart guy.
pretty smart guy. But yeah, and many of us still can't wrap our heads around that. Right. Another guy, Jim Carrey, all the silly movies, that he does. He actually used to be homeless.
You know something else he did? When he started out in movies early on, he wrote himself a check for $20 million and carried it around in his wallet. Someday he wanted to be so successful that he could cash that check.
Wow.
And that was his motivation. Talk about intentional.
Yeah.
He actually carried around a check for $20 million that he'd written to himself long before he had the $20 million.
That's crazy. Yeah, he was living out of a van for a while. Bethany Hamilton, that's another one. Think that she would just given up after she was her arm was bitten off by a shark when she was surfing.
Oh yes,
there's a movie.
I've heard that
it.
story. Yes,
most of us didn't know about it, I guess, until the movie.
Right,
because East Coast we don't surf that much over here, but yeah, she actually won first place in SSA national championship later with one arm. Isn't that crazy? Benjamin Franklin. We're going old school now. His family could only afford to keep him in school until his 10th birthday. So he was 10 years old, and after that, they couldn't send him to school anymore. He taught himself through reading, but obviously went on to invent lightning rod and bifocals, and obviously one of America's founding fathers.
Right.
In 10th grade, or 10 years old. What grade are you in when you're 10? Like 5th grade, 4th grade? I'm sure they didn't call it that back then, but
right.
But that's very,
a similar story to that, where he's self-taught. Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, that's right.
Taught himself the law.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He read law, it's called. Yeah, is what they referred to it as.
Yeah, you should always be reading. It gets hard with life and so many distractions. It's easy to just sit and watch binge out on a Netflix movie
right.
or something. But yeah, there's so much you can learn just by always reading something.
Right. And the intentionality that we're referring to in all these, the common things, that they had a purpose for their actions, right?
And they all overcame adversity.
Yes, absolutely.
Richard Branson, I didn't realize he has dyslexia.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's a guy with didn't do well in school at all, but created Virgin Records. Obviously, spaceman now, along with Elon Musk. This one I sort of appreciate as a business owner. Sometimes you just when you're starting up, you have a vision for something. You're trying to get people to join you. But Stephen King's first novel was rejected 30 times. 30 times. They said if it wasn't for his wife Carrey insisting that he just finish the novel anyway, that he probably wouldn't have sold over 350 million copies of all his other books.
Yeah.
But yeah, 30 times he was rejected. Can you imagine somebody rejecting Stephen King right now?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Oh.
All the movies we wouldn't have seen.
If he'd have been a stock back then.
Right. Exactly. This is a little more people love her or dislike her, but I can say that she's definitely successful, which is Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
She grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was repeatedly molested by her cousin, uncle, and a family friend. She ran away from home at 14, gave birth to a baby boy who passed away shortly after. That's a tragic beginning.
Yes, it is.
Of a life. But she didn't stop. She got all through high school with honors, won a contest to secure a full scholarship to college. Now she has a net worth of $2.9 billion, right? That's crazy. Whether you agree with her politics or not doesn't really matter as for when it comes to grit and working through, right?
I read something about her. It's been a long time ago now. When she was asking people for financial advice, as she got the most important one that she ever got was never let anybody else write checks for you.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Thomas Edison, I think we've all heard this story before, that he failed over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb. Basically, the exact number of tries has obviously been debated, either from 1,000 to 10,000 attempts. But either way, that's a lot of failure before you eventually get to the success. And his response quote from him was, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways it won't work." That's very much a mindset.
Intention and persistence seem to go hand in hand. At least her cousins or some sort of parallel.
So if you had a Van Gogh painting, it's probably worth a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
You know that Van Gogh, when he was alive, only sold one painting, and it's in a Moscow museum right now. So he still painted over 900 works of art. So he painted over 900 works of art, all which became very famous, very valuable. But he never saw that. Only sold one. That's pretty persistent.
That is.
You think about that. It's like, to go meet Van Gogh or to, this is probably just a, rather common guy doing painting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. But, all these people, I think that we referenced, they all have a drive and determination and said, this is how I want to do this. This is what I want to do. Right. And for a lot of them, it's passion. I think for a lot of them, it's also goes in some form of goal setting, right?
Right, which we talked about in the previous podcast. Absolutely.
The SMART method, right, Brad?
Right, the SMART.
So yeah, it's I'll say that even our own firm here, we started really growing when the intention was to grow. Prior to that, it was, we want to grow.
Right. Yes.
We want to keep helping and serving families. And finally, we built metrics around that, and we set goals and became intentional on what growth looks like and what growth is, right?
Right.
And when that started, then growth came with that. It doesn't just happen magically. Occasionally, people get lucky, but that's not really what happens. I tried to describe it to my son. So my son is a naturally gifted golfer, but with that also comes struggles because there's many naturally gifted golfers in the country, right? Especially males. So what I tried to explain was you're here, you're in the middle of a very upper echelon of golfers, but you have to remember that there's thousands of boys that look at you, and when they look at you, they want to have your golf game, right? But it's all about where we set ourselves, right? Even when we're successful, or you see people that are successful, they might not necessarily think that they're successful, right? But there's an intention, for him, he has goals he sets, and he has drills that he does. And when it's raining and everyone else has gone inside, he's still out there hitting balls, right? That's that drive that you have.
And that's the thing about intention. It expands beyond the actual task itself. And it's all the other ancillary things that we do during the day that produce the final outcome, and letting go of the things that ultimately don't.
Yeah.
Right? Shedding off things that really aren't part of the intention. They have no purpose in themselves. So sometimes what we do at work and what we do in our careers, what we do in our life, it's the little things that add up towards the larger goal, but that in themselves has no, goal towards itself.
Yep.
It's just the intention. For example, an athlete, we'll use that. Good nutrition.
Right.
Okay. Well-being, taking care of their bodies, for example.
Right.
Things of that nature. They don't actually help him run for the touchdown or hit the golf ball or whatever, but it's all part of the ultimate goal. So it's all intentional, and it expands way beyond often just the task itself.
These are some of the people that we named off. They overcame adversity. Most of these people had stories that they could have said, well, I can't do that. I'm living in a van. I can't do that. I'm an abused person in a family. And what I like about these stories is these are all different people from all different walks of life, all different nationalities, that in the end, they didn't look at it as anything as an excuse. Oh, I have dyslexia. I can't do any of that. Right. And so I think if you want to change your situation, you have to start with not making excuses anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be that, man, I want to be a scratch golfer, and maybe this just physically, that's not our thing, and that's fine. But this is just an example. But if you want to be a scratch golfer, but yet you're just going to go off and play golf with your buddies every day, but you're never going to do anything to try to get better at the game.
Right. That's the intentional part.
That's the intentional part, right?
Enjoying a round of golf isn't going to make you better. It will help you enjoy the day.
Right.
But it in and of itself doesn't help. It's all the other things. What Vijay Singh, as a professional golfer, said, he hit 500 golf balls every day, regardless. No matter, even after he played a round of golf, he would still go out and hit 500 golf balls at the range.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think a great example of that is Ballesteros.
Right. Seve Ballesteros.
Seve Ballesteros. I goof up his name every time.
The Spaniard.
The Spaniard. Yes. He would, to the detriment of his marriage and so many other things, but yeah, he'd like win a championship, and he just afterward trophy ceremony, he's still out there on the range hitting balls and working on his short game and all that. So yeah, there's sacrifices that come with that sometimes.
Yes, there
but
are.
Those are choices that people make.
Right. And that's what people don't see.
Yeah.
And this is something, the way you started out, you don't, they've always been successful.
Right.
No, you're just seeing the success now after all the work and the sacrifice and the intentionality that went into it years and years and years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's skipping the dinner with the friends to go better yourself in some other way. It's really fighting your own path. It's not like being the others. If everyone for the most part is mediocre, and if you hang out with mediocre people, you're going to be mediocre. That's just how that's going to be, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be the best, you're going to have to do things that are different than them. You're going to have to look a little different. They're going to look at you like you're a little weird, right? And that's okay, because in the end, you know where you're going. You know what your goals are. And so let's bring this all the way back around to financial success is intentional. So we all want to be happy, right? We all want to have joy in our lives. And you can have that no matter what your wealth is. Wealth is never going to make you happy. It'll make you secure. It'll create opportunities for your family in the future, but it's not the end all, right? The size of your portfolio is not going to make you a better person than a person who has a smaller or no portfolio. So we have to establish that first. But there's also being a slave to debt payments, being a slave to your portfolio. Those aren't good situations to be in, right?
Right.
Everything you think about is the dollar. So what you have to do is figure out, what are your goals financially? Where do you want to be? What's the purpose of your money? Right? The money is just the vehicle. It's not the end result. I mean, yes, we talk with people frequently who say, I want to look at my account and see $1 million. And, that's good. That was a motivation for them, I guess, to see $1 million or $10 million or whatever that number is. But ultimately, what are you doing that? How are you bettering your family? How are you bettering with your education or what have you? How are you bettering your family with what wealth that you do have? What is your legacy? It goes back to our series.
That's right.
A while back ago, we talked about your financial legacy. So let's say you want to make a change financially. So first of all, you have to know where you're at.
And that's so important, knowing the starting point.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at. This is the situation that I'm in. Otherwise, as we say around here, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you're getting.
Right.
So you have to know where you're at and then recognize what you've done to this point to get where you are. And are you satisfied?
Yep.
And is this putting you on the path towards your ultimate goal, or are you off the path somehow? Okay.
Right.
So knowing where you are relative to the ultimate goal. And for the person who says, I want X amount of dollars, without knowing if that's the right amount, they may be going to the wrong goal.
True.
Yeah.
True. So there's a couple of ways to figure out. One, where's your money going? You got to know that. It's so easy to keep a budget these days, or not even keep a budget, just track where your money's going. You can use mint.com. It'll just monitor the checking account. Every single transaction is captured. You can tell it what category to put it in. Don't go crazy. Don't go, going, this was my kitchen cleaning supplies budget item. Right? It's just household, right?
Exactly. And it's really a spending record. You're
Correct.
just recording your expenditures so that you know approximately on any given month or any time period what money is you need to allot for certain items,
So go back 3 months. Get your statements for the last 3 months. Compile where all your money went. This is no different what we would do for somebody who says, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do.
Right.
We would give them this assignment.
Right.
Very rarely do we actually have to do it. We shouldn't do it. The client needs to go do that.
But nonetheless, it's a spending record, and
Yes.
it accumulates over the 3 months and gives you an average at the end.
Right.
So they have an idea of, is there discretionary dollars? Is there lazy dollars? Is there dollars that I'm spending that really I don't even remember spending? And could I kind of reconfigure those to other more productive areas?
Right. So now you know where your money's going. You know probably where you can redirect funds for a goal. So now we have to determine, where do we want to be financially? So what year do you want to retire in? Retirement's not an age. It's it's a dollar amount, actually. If you think about it, you say, I'm 65, it's time to retire. Well, is it? Do you have enough money to retire?
Right.
Can you live off your Social Security? Right. So what's your target dollar amount that you need for retirement? What about college for the kids? How have we saved for that, or have we not saved for that? Maybe that's not a goal. Do we need to get out of debt? Are we saving to buy a house? Are we trying to pay off a house? Do we have a house paid off, but we want to transition? What does that cost? These are all different goals and objectives for where you want to be financially. Maybe there's a big trip you want to take. Maybe there's lots of big trips. We had someone recently, I think they budgeted $50,000 a year for travel, right? I was like, wow, that's a lot of travel. But that's what they did. They want to do that for 5 years, and then they would stop.
Mm-hmm.
So write down those goals. And then from there, that's where you want to create a plan to get to where you want to go. And I love the budget that's super simple, no spreadsheet required. Pay yourself first. Whatever you got to do, pay yourself first. So you know what it takes to hit this goal. Make sure every single paycheck goes there, and then everything else you just work out. Do you got to cut things out? You know you have to cut things out because you've got, you got $10,000 a month. You know you got to save 3 of it, right? Then 7,000 is left over to pay the mortgage and all the other bills, utilities, and all the kids stuff, whatever is going on in your life, and you have to just squeeze it in, but without going into debt, of course. Now, sometimes you have to, you've already done the forensic accounting up in step 1, so you know where the money is going already. You know where you can cut back if you need to cut back. It could be that you're meeting all your goals. You've got college, retirement paid for. Then we create what we call the opportunity bucket. So any excess dollars, man, I get excited when our clients finally get to the point where they're saving enough for retirement, and then the extra dollar can go into a brokerage account. We call it the opportunity fund. When that money goes into that opportunity fund, it's being invested, yes, in stocks and bonds, ETFs, but it's not allocated for retirement. So it could be that someday you find the beach house that you always wanted, or the mountain house, or whatever, and that money is pulled from that account for whatever opportunities. To start a business, right? Or maybe it's help somebody out. Maybe it's give someone else a leg up in your family, right? It's just whatever opportunity you find. Mm-hmm. It's invested a little bit differently, typically. So yeah, create a plan of where you want to go, and how you want to get there. Now so this is kind of goes back to our analysis last week, Brad, in the podcast, but now we want to create a measuring process to track whether or not we're on pace to reach our goals.
And that's so important, because without the intentionality, okay, easy to get off track at any point in time. That's just life. The measurement helps us remain intentional. Okay, I hit my mark this month. I hit my mark the next month.
Yep.
I'm a little off this month, needed a car repair. I'm going to make up for it next month, get back on track. I'm going to be intentional about it. So it's one of the most important things, aside from actually setting the goal, being able to measure your relative position to the goal.
And then this is the part that people forget, and this is the value of a good financial planning firm, in that you need to meet regularly. Now, it could be just once a year, depending on when the goal is, or it could be every 6 months or quarter, whatever it takes to keep people on track. But you have to monitor the goal and then modify things as you go along. It could be that in 2010 you wanted to buy a beach house in 2022, but you had no idea that the price was going to double. Right now, all of a sudden you got to think of a plan, not a plan B, but just you have to come up with an alter the plan, alter the goal. Right.
Well, a great example. Let's go with the beach house. The kids are young. You think that the beach would be great. They get a little older, and you find out that they like snow skiing.
Yes. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So We're living in a constantly changing environment, and the plan needs to be able to, through monitoring it and monitoring life, needs to be able to adjust to that. The opportunity fund is still there. Yep. It just may be deployed in another area, so it's not that it's set in stone at the plan, but rather it's an objective out there. The funds for retirement, for our opportunity, it's really a way to finance our objectives, isn't it? We're just financing it,
I've seen clients come in too with multiple bank accounts, like maybe 5 or 6. And I know I have the same reaction, but it's a process that works for them though. And they say, this is my car fund. So I'm paying myself $500 a month. And then when I build that up I want to pay cash for a car. Oh, this is our vacation funds. Anything we put in there, it's no different than Dave Ramsey's envelope system with cash.
Yes.
It's just a little more secure. Very, very interesting. They don't ever tag, like when you log into the account, they never tag it. So when you first see everything, we're like, I have no idea why we have so many savings accounts or checking accounts, but it is a process that it seems to work for people. Now, as you get older, you want to simplify that. We don't need to be probating that many accounts, when you're 90 years old, but But yeah, so the whole idea is you can't live your life hoping something will happen. You have to live your life making things happen. And by doing that, it's setting intentional goals. It's waking up every morning going, I know exactly what I got to do today in order to hit this goal in the long term, right? And for a lot of people, that's not how most people live their lives. They wake up, they go to work, they, make the donuts, and then they go back home, and it's just like step and repeat. And there's just so much more that you can do if you just understand that if you're intentional about things, that change will happen. You're intentional in changing your situation, right? Things will happen. If you're an abused wife at home right now and you don't think there's a way out, there is a way out. The way out is being intentional about the choices that you make and saving money and making sure that there's an exit or finding help, someone to help you get out of that situation. The same way for people who are dirt poor. There are so many opportunities out there that they can take advantage of if they're willing to stay away from the trouble and get the work done. We haven't said his name in many episodes, but you remember Orrin Checkmate Hudson?
I was thinking about him the other day.
He actually called me.
Did he? Okay.
So Orrin teaches chess class in inner city in an inner city program. Mm-hmm. His headquarters is actually over in Stone Mountain. And he has a house. And people come there after school and they play chess. And the whole idea is, he was in a gang in Birmingham, and he had a teacher that at school that was teaching some of the kids chess. And the teacher saw that Orrin was kind of going down the right path and said, "Hey, Orrin, I want to teach you how to play chess." And he said, "I play checkers." And he's like, "No, checkers only has two moves." And with chess you have all these other different moves, and it's a lot better. It's a lot cooler game, Orrin. So Orrin really took the chess, kind of kept him out of trouble after school. Ended up winning a chess championship, I guess, for the state of Alabama. Went on to the nationals. Ended up being a state trooper for a short time period, but now he's really found his ministry, and that's teaching people how to play chess. And there was a sitcom on Netflix, a series that came out, I guess it was during COVID, but it really it was about chess. I wish I could remember the name of the series. What's it called, Hadley? Queen's Gambit. Yes. Producer Hadley over here is helping me out. The Queen's Gambit, yes. So Queen's Gambit came out, and of course his chess classes just went through the roof because everyone learned how to play chess all of a sudden. But here's a guy that his purpose is to get people out of inner city schools and give them a purpose, and then to be able to overcome adversity. And he has said to me so many times, he says, "There's." People use their situation as an excuse as to what they're stuck in, and that there's plenty of help out there, but they just don't seek it.
And chess being a metaphor.
Correct.
Yes. For the options that the players have with all the different pieces and how they move in different directions is like the choices we have in life.
Correct.
And if you are intentional about moving your pieces around the board, you have a greater chance of success of winning against your opponent. And that's the whole point.
That's right.
And that when things go wrong, he can go back to that decision point, and then he can counsel the young person on where they went wrong in that board, and then use that as a springboard for other things. So
we need to get him back in here. I always enjoy talking to him. It makes me when I leave here going, what? I'm not intentional enough. I gotta make sure I'm making the right moves. He has all these things that he says every single time he's here, but we laugh every time because a lot of it's so true. But yeah, so just again, not to belabor this point over and over again, but whatever situation you might be going through professionally, don't make excuses. Find a purpose. I think I've said most of my life, I never want things to happen to me. I want to make things happen. And those are It's two different mindsets. It's like we're here today to make something happen versus, okay, what's going to happen today? I don't know what's going to happen today. Right?
That happens enough as it is. You just have to deal with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's same for our firm. We get calls all the time. People going, "Oh, we've seen your growth rate, and we want to buy you." They're so arrogant. These people, they are. It really makes me. I don't take the calls anymore. But there's a couple of really big firms you do take their calls, and it was very interesting. It's like, "Oh, when you hit this certain point, you're going to need us," and I'm like, well, "What am I? I don't think I am." And one of our board members made it very clear to me. He says, "Well, there is a brick wall there, but what they don't understand is you're running 60 miles an hour in a bulldozer." They've never seen a firm like that. Yeah. So, it's surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who will push you. And that's intentional. And something that I've learned over the years too is making sure that you surround your people that if something good happens to you, they're generally happy for you, and you're generally happy for them if something good happens to them. Those are your real friends. And we don't need to waste time with people who don't, who are not that for us, because those people aren't helping you. I don't know who needs to hear that today, but that was on my mind. So anyway, being intentional, make a change. Maybe your finances are in great shape. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, your finances are probably in pretty good shape. Who can you help? Who can be intentional? Who can you help? I know it's past the holiday season, but who's in your life that you can help motivate and move forward, and be a changing force for them to give them a leg up going forward. All right, Brad. I feel like we preached a little bit today, but that was it's a good conversation.
Great. Thanks, Casey.
All right.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, that way you don't miss any new episodes. We would also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. We would love to hear from you. This episode was produced and edited by Lilton Moore.